Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Bar Shem, Yahweh Shai, Bar Shem, Harakah, Kodash, double honors unto the apostles and elders, great millstone who rule well, and shalom to the whole full elect. It's another news and prophecy and news coming back at you again. It's breaking news. Basically, it's an article from Sky News. I'm just going to delve right into it and pull out some scriptures, commentate on some of the points that are being outlined, and Lord willing, you be edified. Right, so it says coronavirus social gatherings of more than 6 people to be banned in England from Monday. All right, now if you've been following the news and you're familiar with anything that's been going on with the UK, what they've been doing is two main things that I've noticed throughout the course of the last few couple of months. The first one, they've been doing local lockdowns, where they've been locking down local towns and cities, where they say that they have a spike in coronavirus cases, right? So, and that basically reflects upon the what they'll say is the what's his word how contagious it is, all right? It going from one person to the next basically. But at the same time, the other thing they've been doing as well is what's the other thing they've been doing? Local lockdowns. Yeah, since flights have been allowed, they've been having certain people going into quarantine for 14 days when they land, based upon a deadline, a cutoff point, and it'll be certain places, very specific places. So it might be Greece, it might be this, it might be that, and they've been implementing that like strategically, week by week. I haven't been following it close, but I've taken a mental note of it, and I've noticed that they've been doing that. So more or less priming the minds of the people to the fact that, lockdown could be implemented or your rights can be taken away at the drop of a hat, basically. Alright? So anyway, it says a ban of groups of more than 6 people gathering in homes, parks, pubs and restaurants in England is being imposed by Boris Johnson in the biggest coronavirus crackdown since lockdown rules were eased. Alright? Because they came out and also said that I don't really watch TV, so I'm more going off the breaking news I get on my phone. So they said GPs warned at the second wave, but when I went into my local cafe, basically I was told by the woman serving me that it was all over the news this morning. They've been scaring the people about the second wave. So yeah, so you can see that everything's now going back into lockdown, and this is something I did mention before. All right, as an opinion, that the lockdown was light work basically, because it was like March, the tail end of basically the beginning of spring, more or less. Okay, so more or less missed the whole of winter and the height of the flu season basically. But we had a lockdown, adequate lockdown for a couple months or whatever. Then they started easing up, but now we're going into a second wave. All right, where they're saying it could be more worse than the initial one. Plus, it's got a longer period of time. The amount of uncertainty, vaccine coming, and even over here in the UK, in America, you got the what's it called, the elections, right? Funny enough, the elections, but then also over here in the UK, you got Brexit happening, right? So it's like the perfect storm going into 2021. A lot of people been saying 2020 is a write-off, but they got no idea what's around the corner in 2021, right? Because it's looking far worse than what it looks like in this year, all right? So when it says, reading on it says, first offenders will be fined £100, which will double on each further repeat offence up to 3,200. So anytime you commit an offence, you get a fine of 100, then it gets doubled up. until you reach 3,200. All right, the Prime Minister, and mind you, we're going through economic woes, all right, a financial crisis, so money's tight already. The Prime and inflation as well. The Prime Minister will announce a lack of food, basically. Food shortages are leading to famine, all right? So, like I said, the perfect storm. The Prime Minister will announce in a bid to stem an alarming surge in COVID-19 cases in UK. In the UK, we need to act now to stop the virus spreading, Mr. Johnson will declare at Downing Street news conference, coinciding with a new government advertising campaign entitled, and this is the new phrase, hands, face, space. All right. So we are simplifying and strengthening the rules of social contact, making them easier to understand and for the police to enforce. All right. And that is really simple. All right. Because space can be it ain't 2 meters no more. It could be 6 meters if a person feels like that's the adequate amount of space they need. All right. So it says making it easier to understand for police for the police to enforce. All right. So basically, that's giving more powers into the hands of the police. All right. And they didn't really simplify it. What they did is they broadened it. All right. It says it is absolutely critical that people now abide by these rules and remember the basics: washing your hands, covering your face, keeping space from others, and getting a test if you have symptoms. All right. So it says, what are the new rules? From next Monday, any gathering of more than 6 people in England will be illegal unless it meets one of the limited list exemptions. This applies to gatherings both indoors and outdoors. The new rule does not apply to households or bubbles of more than 6 or gatherings for work or education, right? Which doesn't make sense, man. If you're these people that are going to be meeting in these work or educational settings are not from the same household, so that's going to increase the transmission rate of this so-called virus, all right? As opposed to just having your friends, people you know that you can trust, linking up with each other. It doesn't make no sense, but they're priming the minds of the people. Gradualism, right? Weddings, funerals, and organized team sports carried out in COVID secure way, in a COVID secure way, are also exempt. All right. People will be first fined £100, but this will double each further repeat offence up to 3,200. So basically, yeah. So all those things, social gatherings, are gonna be xed out. All right. So let me carry on reading this. It reads, the crackdown comes after warnings from the government medical chiefs that the public, particularly young people, are now too relaxed about coronavirus, with a result that COVID-19 rates are about 20%, above 20%, 20 per 100,000 people. And this is just the people having COVID, not the mortality rate, all right? Which mortality rate will show that this is a fallacy. This is a figment of people's imagination, unless they come through that new strain, that COVID-20, okay? So it reads, it says, the PM's announcement follows the Health Security Secretary, Matt Hancock, imposing a ban on socialising with people from other households in Bolton, with restaurants in town limited to serving takeaway food and a 10 p.m. 5 a.m. curfew on all venues. Ahead of Mr. Hancock's Bolton announcement, England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Professor Jonathan Van Tam, warned of a bumpy ride over the next few months. And yeah, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Really, you're going to have October's going to be when it really kicks off, all right? September's like the last month of summer, so to speak. So we're dealing with October, November, December, January, February, March. So that's 6 months before. We got extra 6 months prior to what we had this year in terms of a lockdown. And that's the most murky times within, the most peak times for flu season, all right? Especially around December, late November, December, um, January, February, all right? The change in temperature and then the continuated cold, all right? All these things are basically going to make it a difficult time and space. But let's not forget Brexit. Let's not forget the mass job shortages and the cut-off period also for landlords having to allow their tenants to stay in their houses as well. So there's a lot of different factors that play into this that basically show you that, hey, the next few months are going to be a bumpy ride, basically. Says that the health secretary also issued a warning to young people this week not to spread the virus to older, more vulnerable relatives, telling people in their late teens and early 20s don't kill your gran by catching coronavirus and then passing it on. Okay. So yeah, for the most part, you can read this article, you can check it out. It's on Sky News, but a lot of news platforms also have their own take on this information now, as this is national news basically. So I'm going to delve into some scriptures for further edification. So there's Revelations 20:1. I'm going to read down to verse 3, and it reads, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. All right, the bottomless pit is talking about Europe, and the great chain, you're going to see what it's going to do. It said, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent. Dragon's talking about the Rome, the Greco-Roman Empire, right, which denotes, represents Esau's rulership over the earth. Esau Edom is known as the so-called white man today, but Esau Edom is biblical nationality. All right, so it says that old serpent, going back to the garden, because it's the same spirit, same man, all right, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So for 1,000 years during the Dark Ages, you basically, or the Middle Ages is also known, you basically had them locked up, and that's when Jake was ruling, and basically they carried on in a pagan form of rulership. You know, the only good that came out of that period, really, you could say, is King James rulership and the translation of the Bible, which is a huge aid, alright, for us in modern times to understand the interpretation of the scriptures, alright. But reading on, it says, and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him. Yeah, because as it speaks of in the book of Job, it speaks of Esau becoming the base of men, grunting, and basically living in the mountains of Caucasus, basically, and having loss of all form of dignity, basically, because he was sharp and sealed. There was a spiritual seal put upon him, and being driven from men. Alright, so it says, and that he should deceive the nations no more till 1,000. And the main point, he said, deceive the nations no more. So that means when he wasn't locked and bound, what was he doing? He was deceiving the nations. Okay. But it says, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after he must be loosed a little season. Alright, because after that time he's going to be loosed a little season. Because Paul spoke of it in the book of Thessalonians, that there should come a falling away first, and that the man of sin be revealed, the man of sin should be revealed, and who how is it worded? Who can't? I'm not even gonna bother try because I'm gonna butcher it. But basically, who that let, and I said I'm not gonna try. You read it in Thessalonians. Basically talks about Esau coming into rulership, and he was ruling during that time as the Romans, and that basically was going to come into rulership again and be revealed as the devil and Satan. Okay, so I said he should be loose a little season, and that's the season we're in right now, is that little season. Okay, going as far back as the 14th century, going back to the what's this word called, man? The Renaissance period, okay, which means rebirth, okay, because it was a rebirth of Esau, Edom's rulership upon the earth. So, I want to go here to show you what Esau was doing during that period when he ruled, okay, when he was deceiving the nations. So this is First Maccabees 8:1. I'm going to read down to verse 4. Now Judas had heard of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men. So Judas Maccabees heard of the Romans, okay. They were mighty and valiant men, such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make league of amity all that came unto them, and that they were men of great valor. It was told him also that of their wars and noble acts, which they had done among the Galatians, right, in Greece, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute. So they basically came in. That's why it's called the Greco-Roman Empire, because they superseded them, right, and then became the superior power in that dynamic, basically the tail end of the two. Verse 3. And what they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there, and that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them. Alright? So they basically went all these different places, but what allowed them to conquer them was their implementation of policy with patience. Alright? So gradualism. Alright, that's gradualism, and that's what we see going on right now. Him being loosed in the season, for a little season, doing the same thing as doing back then, doing now. Okay, is being done now. And the kings also came against him, also that came against them from the utmost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them, and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. Okay, so they basically took over all these places and made them tributaries. Alright, so now I'm going to finish on this scripture. This is Daniel's 8 and 4, I believe. No, 7, I believe. $25, that's it. Alright, so it's 8, Daniel's 8 and 25. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. And this is what we're saying going right now. Because ultimately what this all leads to, which I didn't mention but is the main point, is the RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast. Okay, this is priming the minds of the people into going basically through, divide and conquer. Alright, and grinding, fatiguing the resilience of the people. Alright, tiring them out, so they basically will succumb to the powers that be. Alright, because this place is all about the tiring of the saints, right? So it says, and craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Alright, so he's basically going to stand up against Yahushua, but he's going to be broken without hand. So with that, man, I pray you're edified. Till the next one, say shalom.